What's going on? My name is Bim, and welcome to a different part of our little home here. So I used to record in front of my computer, but that was because I was dependent on the microphone. But now I bought this $3 lapel. Let's see how this performs, and we might start using this from now on. But yeah, welcome to our little new part of the home. Today we're talking about the Gamesir T4. It is a wireless gaming controller from the good people at Gamesir. They could be good sirs, who knows. Alright, so this is a wireless or wired controller for the PC, PS3, because for some reason all Chinese third-party manufacturers of controllers label PS3, or they support PS3, Android, and Nintendo Switch. So out of the box, it comes with a USB Type-C cable, which is good. It comes with its own cable. The packaging is actually pretty nice. It's nice and glossy out here. It's beat up because I've been opening this dozens of times over the last few months. But it came in pristine condition. So it comes with a little pouch. There it is, as you see. There's your little pouch. It also comes with the dongle, which to me kind of loses points, right? Because I know why it's there, so you can use it for multiple devices, right? But I know I have, and I know you've got a bunch of dongles, whether it's for your headphones or your mice or your other controllers or USB flash drives. I know everyone's got at least 5 of them, right? So it's just one more thing you can lose. So this kind of loses points for me. So it also comes with an instruction manual on how to connect it to your different devices. I think it comes in English and Chinese. Nope, just Chinese. So connecting it to the PC is pretty straightforward. So you take your dongle, you plug it in any USB port, and then you press home. And then you start seeing this indicator light. It will go up and down. When it finds a signal, it stops. If you want to play it wired, you just plug this up here, USB-C, very sturdy, and then you plug this in any USB port, then it gets recognized as a controller. So that's pretty neat, pretty straightforward. Connecting it to an Android phone is a little weird. So you'd need an adapter that goes either USB-C, depending on your phone, USB-C or micro USB into a regular, I think it's USB-A. Then you plug this thing in here and you plug that into your adapter for your phone. So it's a little weird. It doesn't come with one, so you're going to have to purchase one separately. Connecting it to the Nintendo Switch is a little more straightforward, but still pretty weird. So you have to make sure that Pro Controllers is enabled. Then you go to change grip order, and then before plugging this in, you have to press home so it starts looking for a signal and then plugging this in. So it's a little weird. You'd think that you'd have to plug this in first, then press the home button, right? But in the times that I've tried it, that's not how it works. It works this way for some reason. I know it's weird, but that's how it works for me. All right, let's talk about the build quality. So the front shell and the back shell are made with similar material, very high quality plastic. The front shell and the back shell are kind of translucent, so you could see the LEDs embedded underneath, which I think gives it a very nice effect. It looks really good, and it feels great. The buttons, the paddles, the face buttons, the analog sticks, and even the D-pad, they all feel really nice to press because of the quality of the plastic. So nothing feels cheap. But the weird thing is, this is a fairly cheap controller, which goes for under $30. So I got it for like 1,400 pesos. So it's under 30 bucks. But everything's made very sturdily, very solid, very nice plastic. The problem is, when it comes to comfort, the plastic, while it feels good in terms of like the quality of it, it gets really slippery. So if you're a sweaty gamer, or if it's hot in your room or wherever, your hands are wet for whatever reason, it starts getting very slippery. So if you put it on a surface, depending on what the surface is made of, it actually moves freely, like it was skates on ice. So there's that. It's a minor thing. Plus, if you see the paddles on the back, if you've got these set to anything, then it kind of forces your hand into a position that's less ergonomic, because you tend to avoid pressing them. You can disable these things, but if you use them, then you're going to have to make sure that you don't press them accidentally. So it kind of forces your hand into a less ergonomic position. The good thing about that is the existence of the paddles. So it's one of the more innovative things that the controller gives you. The paddles and the back buttons are usually reserved for controllers that are quite premium. So you've got the Pro Elites, the Scuff controllers, so they have the paddles. So this thing has paddles. It's implemented in a not as good way, I guess I could put it. But the fact that it's there, the fact that the option is there for you is amazing for $30. Plus, it has some kind of soft macro functionality. So what you do is when you want to set it to something is you press the back button and one of the paddles, any one of them. This light will turn purple. That means it's accepting input. And you can press any of the buttons, like the shoulder buttons, your face buttons and whatnot, in any order. So if you want to bind a combination of these two buttons or these three buttons, whatever, you press them in any order. As long as you press all of them, then you press the paddle button again. Then that recognizes it as the input. And when you press the paddle button in gameplay, it will press like all the buttons you pressed simultaneously. So in a game like Tekken, where you have multiple button combinations for different moves, so you can set the shoulder buttons from the software itself, but apart from that, you can have 4 more button combinations in the back. So you say these are throw, this is double punch, double kick. You could have chi charge here. You could have, I don't know, 3 buttons here, 3 buttons. Very good for linking throws, I guess. So there's that. And while we're on the topic of buttons, it would be fair to say that all of the buttons in front, except for the D-pad maybe, are really good to press and they work really well. The accuracy on your right stick is actually pretty good. So I tried it on Just Cause 4, Anthem, and some Apex Legends, and you'll find that the dead zones on the controllers aren't crazy big, so they're just right. It lets you aim fairly accurately. I like that the options and home and menu buttons are kind of flush on the body, which means when you need to press them, your finger just kind of glides towards them, and it's not harsh in any way. I know it's a small thing. The DualShock 4 also has quite similar functionality as well as the Xbox One and the Nyko Core. So I think there's a reason for that. There are some controllers. There's a controller I'm going to review very soon that has very raised, very sharp-edged options buttons. And it might not seem crazy at the start, but if you play, the longer you play, the more annoying it gets. So I'm glad that this is really flush on the body. Face buttons have quite a bit of travel to them, much less than, let's say, the DualShock 4, but very similar to the Nyko wireless. And the size of the buttons are actually quite big, and they're nice to touch. They're translucent plastic, so you see the LED in the back. The button prompts are Xbox, ABXY. Which is weird because it works for the Nintendo Switch. You'd think it would be switched around, but it's not. So that's good for PC players, I guess, who see Xbox prompts. My problems with it would be the shoulder buttons, especially the bumpers. The bumpers are so squishy. They're so squishy and light to touch, and they're so sensitive. The triggers are a little, I wouldn't say stiff, but they're less, there's more resistance to them when you press them compared to a DualShock 4 or a Xbox One controller. So there's a little more resistance to them. The travel's a little short, but the acceleration, I guess you would say, is quite accurate. So that's really good. And the shape is quite nice. It feels really good pressing these triggers. Another problem I have would be the D-pad. So most D-pads, most third-party D-pads at least, suffer from inaccuracy. But more than that, this thing suffers from the need to press it with intent. So like a crouch dash in Tekken, let's say, is sort of like this motion, right? So it's forward, forward, neutral, down, forward, right? When you do it on a DualShock 4 and any other controller, it's a light, fast motion. Doing it on this thing kind of requires you to make sure you press all the buttons properly and quite heavily. Otherwise, you would get something entirely different, probably like a dash forward or something. Also, it kind of suffers from the missed up and down inputs, or missed left and right inputs giving you up and down inputs. So if you press forward, sometimes you get a little bit of a jump. So that's kind of annoying. However, if you're using the controller for adventure games where where the directional buttons are usually relegated to menu items, then this is fine. It works well. So let's talk about the versatility. So if you notice, there are 4 indicator lights here. So the great thing about this is you can switch it between X input and D input. So D input for, I think, the PS3 or other things you might need D input for. But so it just shows you how versatile and how innovative this controller is. So for $30, you get multiple inputs, works on multiple devices. The buttons are serviceable. Face buttons are great. D-pad, if you're not going to use it for super hyper accurate controls, then you're fine with it. Accuracy is good. So all in all, a really solid controller. You can find it on Lazada, Amazon, Shopee, I guess. So yeah, Gamesir T4 gets probably an 8 out of 10 for me. So it's really good. All right, so before I end the video, again, the channel used to be monetized, so it's not anymore since YouTube Apocalypse version 1.0, where they kind of cut off all the small content creators. So if you enjoy the video, if you found it sort of entertaining or sort of informative, it would help us a lot if you could just leave a subscription, give us a subscribe or like or comment. That helps a lot. All right, thank you guys very much. I will catch you guys in the next one.